Welcome everybody. This is the Jeff and Jerry Show. Welcome to see you, Jerry.
Yeah, we're going to have a bit of a discussion about more resilient communities, Jeff.
Yeah, I think we need to do that these days, and particularly around things like energy and waste. And in the ACT, there's a big discussion about incineration, and you've been involved in that, mate.
Yeah, it's a bit of a concern actually. There's some really strange distortions about what waste to energy actually is in a broader context. People talk about mixed waste incineration in the same area as they talk about anaerobic digestion, which is they're completely apart. One's hot fire burn, and the other one's just a totally cool process that produces gas, and of course it's used a lot in the UK.
Yeah.
The real concern, I think, is that people mistake the idea for recycling. It's not recycling at all, and as we've talked about for many years, you've got to have a situation where you've got these resources in your community. You need to keep them in your community, and as you've said in many documents, turn them into manufactured goods, so you're actually creating employment and use them as a resource base.
Well, I think that's absolutely right, Jerry, and we've actually discussed the fact that people can misuse these resources because they do make these mistakes in thinking in that way. We have to change our thinking, and we have to see that we're looking at supporting our community both in employment, but really utilising these resources to enrich our community environment and to build a knowledge base.
Yep.
So incineration as a way of looking at problems around these material flows, to me, is actually not the right direction.
Yeah, when you look to, and say the last 30 years, I've seen some really strange examples around the world of people using incineration.
Yes.
There's one incinerator in Taipei that's actually has a rotating restaurant built around the chimney, and the really perverse bit is you sitting up in the air above these vegetable gardens. That's where all the dioxin and furan is landing, and you're actually getting those vegetables back up into the restaurant, of course, and then you can see the burning landfill just over not quite, only a couple of 100 metres away. So they've got all sorts of alternatives, but they claim that is recycling, and of course it's as far from recycling as you could possibly get.
And no doubt you pay an extra amount of money for all that benefit, don't you, to ingest all these problems?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And then the incinerator we're talking about for Canberra, of course, is going to cost 200 million.
Yes.
The one they're talking about in Sydney is 700 million. It's just absolute error and nonsense. And people get this misconception that somehow or other this is going to create enormous amounts of energy, but of course it's a dirtier way to generate energy than burning coal.
Well, we don't need to have actually those forms of energy in today's society. I mean, solar and wind are obviously, particularly in the ACT, very satisfactory and actually doing a pretty good job. But I worry really something you said a bit earlier about the notion of changing the form of energy. So at the moment, if you don't burn it, you can actually use it and make other stuff
Absolutely.
with it. But if you burn it, well, you've lost it.
And also, too, when you burn it, you also create an enormously toxic waste that you've got to do something with, and it has to go into a landfill that's capable of actually holding something as toxic as that.
Yes.
It's absolutely nonsensical.
Well, the capital investment that's actually required to build these types of plants is money that's tied to either the manufacturer, whereas it could be much more widely spread within the community, and people tend to think of solutions only as one big block, whereas our view, I think, is that you can actually spread the ideas around and have smaller activities, engaging more people, learning more about what their lives are like and how you grow things, and actually the net benefit to the community is far greater.
Yeah, absolutely, and people do get this funny idea somehow that these people are going to spend $200 million on an incinerator and it's just going to sit there and be beautiful and wonderful.
Yes.
and totally ignore the fact that the only people who have money in the community is the only wallet that's there is your wallet, and they're going to take money out of your wallet to actually pay for that thing, or take money out of your wallet to pay for the landfill, or take money out of your wallet and pay for the recycling. But if the recycling, at least you get something back.
Well, and I think we can't underestimate the knowledge that is generated by doing things yourself, and if we're talking about these as consideration of how we manage the materials involved in the waste streams, we're really giving people an economic base which is going to deal with the challenges of the future.
Absolutely. And in fact, in talking about the future, we should break this up into a whole series of different discussions we could have. That'll probably do us for a start.
I think that's a pretty good go, yes.